2030.
Saudi Arabia, the point of investment fund,
It's a
there's
big
a lot of excitement
This
around
transformational
NEOM specifically.
change. Every aspect of the kingdom, economic, social, cultural, religious.
The 2030.
This is the 2030.
Yalla, yalla, yalla.
This is the 2030 episode 25. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. We are 25 episodes old, but we're not feeling old. We're just 25 episodes old. Dr. Hanaa and Lucien, what's up? How are you?
Good. How are you?
It's nice to be here with you, celebrating this milestone. And thanks to everybody else who is here. We cannot believe how successful this program has been since we launched it. I guess we can believe it. We can believe it. Yeah, I believe it too. 25 episodes in, 10,000 subscribers strong across our platforms. Pretty cool. So thanks for everybody for listening in. We talked about this before we started recording. We love doing this. So this is fun for us. But it's also nice to see that it's fun for other people, or at least valuable. So thanks to everybody, seriously.
Yeah, it feels really good to know that the work that we put into this is valuable to that many people. I really hope that if it is valuable, you continue to share it with others and you let us know what we can do to make it even better.
Yeah, thank you for that little prompt. Please email, comment, message, whatever you can do, however you want to get in touch with us. We love hearing from you. Last week, of course, we had our terrific conversation with Ibrahim Almojel. I always say that. And he was terrific.
No, you got it right the first time.
I did it?
That's
okay,
better.
Great. That's good.
Yeah.
Better. Okay. It's something that you're just going to always have to work with me on, and for which I apologize in advance going forward and apologize for all mistakes in the past. But that was a really good conversation, and we got a ton of feedback on that, both directly to each other, but we actually would like to read some of the feedback that we got on that conversation because he's such an interesting dude. Really accomplished. What he's doing with Khwarizmi Holding, which is like 4 other companies rolled into one. And then what he accomplished at SIDF during a very pivotal period of time is incredible. Let's read some of these comments, Dr. Hanaa, if you're cool with that, because some of these are really worthwhile. Salman Juma from Aramco Ventures said, Ibrahim, you are an inspiration for the rest of us who are trying to make an impact at our levels. Looking forward to hearing about all the other great things you'll be doing in the future. Thumbs up emoji. Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Actually, it's incredible how many positive comments we got on the post and LinkedIn and other places as well. But I wanted to read this note from Fawaz Tamimi. Dr. Ibrahim Almojel, we're immensely proud to be part of the transformative growth happening here in Saudi. And one day we'll share with our grandchildren the incredible stories of how we contributed to a journey that not only impacted the Middle East and the GCC, but resonated across the world.
I love that. That kind of encapsulates it. He had this comment at the beginning. We asked him, essentially, what was your journey to SIDF? How did you get the role? And what was that like? And he essentially said there was something that he couldn't say no to. And it was something that he wanted to talk to his children and grandchildren about. There's a pivotal moment in Saudi Arabia's history happening right now. It is the subject of this podcast. And he just felt like this was his chance to serve and be part of that story. And then to be able to have stories for as he grows older for his children and grandchildren who will be curious about what it was like during that time of transformation. Just really cool. This is from Abdulaziz Al Zaid. Ibrahim and his visionary leadership at SIDF exemplifies the power of bold decisions and commitment to national transformation. Yeah. Oh, 3 clapping emojis too. I'm a big emoji guy actually these days. So thank you, Abdulaziz, for that. I do like emojis, yeah.
Add a little bit of emotion.
Yeah, they do.
No,
and they soften your like comment. If you're saying something, you're like, I don't want you to read that the wrong way. Toss an emoji at the end of it. And then it's, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. He's not upset.
Yeah. No, so I think the thing is, like, everybody that I know that's ever worked with Ibrahim really says great things about him. And there was a fantastic comment by Jobel, who is, I think, no longer at SIDF, but she wrote that when she was working at SIDF as a hospitality staff server, every time he visited every floor in SIDF, she'd catch up with him in the elevator or anywhere in the building. His character as a person is very impressive because he's very down to earth, a very down to earth CEO. He's very humble and kind to everyone. And she put a smiley emoji.
A smiley emoji. That was a smiley comment. We love to hear that.
Yeah.
That was really cool. And all this feedback is just great. It makes it for us as hosts really rewarding to do this. As we mentioned, it's just nice to hear from the community that we're building here. So that's really great. If you haven't done so yet, we have to ask, please subscribe to us wherever you're seeing us or listening to us. It helps us a lot to build this out. So yes, thank you for everybody for being here. We are not going to slow down. In fact, we are nearing the end of our period of adjusted publishing schedule, which is the month of August and a little bit of July. So we'll be back on a normal schedule within a week or so, although you have a lot of traveling coming up, Dr. Hanaa, but we will make it work because we are firmly committed to this. But it's been nice to have a little bit of flexibility this month.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in the US can be really difficult because I'm still working. It's modified hours, obviously, because the time zone that I am in is a very difficult one. I feel like I live in the past. Like, I think if I were in Hawaii, it would be worse. But here on the West Coast of the US, I wake up when people are basically going to sleep in other parts of the world, and Saudi in particular. So I feel like it'll be nice to be back in a time zone where I'm a little bit closer to everybody that I work with.
I dealt with that a lot working in venture capital. The time difference can be anywhere between 10 and 11 hours, which is just absolutely impossible to manage when you're trying to schedule calls between California, Washington, Oregon, and Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. Is a huge pain in the behind. Yeah, but I like it that you're over there. You're only 3 hours different from me here in the East Coast. We still have our America sandwich going, both sides of America covered. So I like it because it's a lot easier for us to communicate and collaborate. But yeah, I think that resonates. So I'm glad you're hanging in there because I know you work as well with many organizations in Saudi Arabia. So that's got to be tough. But yeah, glad to hear. Has it been a good trip overall? I know you've been working a lot, and I feel bad that the 2030 has been contributing to a not as relaxing vacation as it could have been, but has it been a good visit and trip?
No, the modified publishing schedule of the 2030 has definitely helped. But overall, yeah, it's been amazing. I love coming here. Honestly, I've come here my whole life, so it feels like coming home. But also, I feel like I have multiple homes, and I feel very privileged and lucky to have that feeling. But it's great. It's a place where I can be outside a lot and really appreciate nature. And I love that because I don't really get that as much in London. And I definitely miss kind of some of the outdoors elements of being in Saudi and Khobar and being at the beach and all of that. But it's really different here. It's fresh, it's green, it's just a beautiful, lush part of the world. And it's a great corner. So I love coming here, and I've had a great summer. And
I'm curious, has the air quality improved at all, or what are we looking at?
It's improved significantly. It was only bad for a couple of days while I was here in the very beginning. So luckily, we haven't gotten a lot of smoke this summer. It's been pretty clear, but a lot of rain. So something else is keeping you indoors. If it's not the smoke, it's the rain. What can you do?
I am so jealous of that. Where I live, randomly, it just does not rain as much as everywhere else around where I live. And we have been in a very dry summer here, which is a thing to manage when you have space like I do. So you're trying to keep all the plants alive. It just has not rained. And every time it looks like it's going to, it won't. So yeah, anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. Anyway, let's get into a deep dive. Today's deep dive, I really want to talk about the recent news. And this is about the Riyadh Metro. I hope you're either sitting down or if you're standing up, holding on to something firmly so you don't fall over. We have new confirmation that the metro for the kingdom's capital city will open this year after a decade of hard work from both the public and private sector, regional authorities, the Bax Consortium who built it. The 174-kilometer metro train system's launch is, quote, just around the corner, according to Saudi Arabia's Minister of Transport and Logistics, Salah Al Jasser. Quote, the long wait, he said, and I want to focus on this in a little bit, will end with a distinguished project that we are all looking forward to, Al Jasser told the network in Arabic. I believe that was Al Arabiya. Quote, the Royal Commission for Riyadh City announced that it will open this year. It is undoubtedly a massive project and a significant shift, he added. We are talking for the Riyadh Metro, 6 metro lines, 84 stations, 80 bus routes, 842 buses spread across 2,860 stops. The total estimated cost for the project, though admittedly it is very difficult to know exactly, is estimated to be at $22.5 billion. Combined, the transport network and infrastructure will have a passenger capacity of 1.7 million passengers per day. In the initial operation phase alone, the network will be connected to King Khalid International Airport and King Abdullah Financial District, CAFT, the main universities downtown Riyadh, and the Public Transport Center. Of course, the metro, and you can look up a map online. Inshallah, we will also have a map of it for those of you watching on YouTube. So I chose this for a deep dive because this is something I've been following very closely for ever since it was launched almost a decade ago, because Riyadh is a city that needs a metro. It is a city that is growing in every direction. The population is booming. Of course, you have housing challenges, and the elephant in the room, and it's in the room at least twice a day, is traffic can be really gnarly in Riyadh. So this is very exciting, super exciting for those of us who live or visit there regularly. I am excited. I do want to take this deep dive, though, because I've been thinking about this for a while, and I really want to address something that the minister said, and is something that I feel like I heard every time the metro was discussed over the past decade or so, and that is the time that this took to complete and launch. It was originally scheduled to be completed in 2019. Here we are in 24. It's just about ready, so you could say that it's about 5 years behind schedule. Of course, 2.5 of those years were the pandemic and global uncertainty and turmoil. So let's call it 2.5 years behind schedule, because I feel like that was very tough to manage. Construction sites, although they were outdoors, were largely scaled back and shut down, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. But I want to address the people that have constantly, and it's probably just a way of making conversation, but they roll their eyes at the delay. And I want to invite those people to consider the size of this project. It is massive. And the complexity. Building a whole metro system in an established city is absolutely no easy feat, nor is it inexpensive. You're talking about endless variables after the design phase, many of which present themselves along the way, which implementers and construction people have to deal with. Of course, you have the nature of up and down financial cycles that naturally occur during a decade plus long time phase. In Saudi Arabia, a lot of it is tied to the price of oil still, as they're transforming their economy to not be so reliant on that price of oil. So you had ups and downs there. But it even includes a metro station that, if it isn't a work of art, it's a work of historic architecture by the unrivaled Zaha Hadid. That building at CAFT, the metro station, is truly a sight to be seen. It's so beautiful. And then you have things like safety concerns. Yes, these things take a long time to build, but you want to make sure that when it's done building, everybody is safe when they use it. Everyone in Riyadh in the last 2 years, probably or more, has seen the empty cars go by, traveling on the metro, but with no passengers. That is because they wanted to make sure that this metro system was safe and reliable and consistent. And then I want to talk about, in the United States, where I'm from and where I live part of the year, infrastructure projects, especially transportation infrastructure projects, are just always delayed. They are always delayed, and they are always running over cost. A review of large public works projects, especially in infrastructure over the last century, by research consultancy. I don't have the name in front of me, and I was researching this last night because I was like, I'm pretty sure that in the United States, I've never heard of an infrastructure project delivered on time. I'm sure there are some, but over the last century here, they are consistently underestimated. This phenomenon is attributed to the desire of the project advocates to have their projects approved quickly. Other important reasons for cost increases include inaccurate scope, unreasonably optimistic schedules, political pressures, which I'll talk about in a bit, to stay within budget. Large projects also have long lives and idiosyncratic features that contribute to their complexity. So not only is a overdue or delayed or past due, I don't know how you want to say it, not only is this common with infrastructure projects, there is now an act of Congress in the United States to ensure that this is at least somewhat managed and contained. Lessons learned from the 1990s mega projects led Congress to include, in the United States, of course, a requirement in the Transportation Equity Act for the 21st century, TEA-21, that every mega project defined as $1 billion or more receiving federal funds must have a financial plan that is updated annually. In the US, when you have these big transportation infrastructure projects, you can just bet on them being over budget and behind schedule, and that's okay. And I want to talk about some of the biggest ones that we probably know about that nobody really thinks about as over budget or behind schedule because they're completed and now they're awesome. In Boston, at a cost of $14.78 billion, the Central Artery Tunnel Project, known affectionately as the Big Dig, and I know you know Boston very well, Dr. Hanaa, proved to be one of the largest, most technically difficult, and environmentally challenging infrastructure projects ever undertaken in the United States. It was completed in 2007, and it's essentially a huge tunnel infrastructure network underneath Boston. It has transformed that city. My brother lives there. Every time I go, I marvel at it. It's an unbelievable feat of engineering. The Big Dig started in 1991 and 2006. The project concluded on December 31st, 2007. I'm sorry, I meant to say it was completed in 2006. So we're talking about 15 years. The project's general contractor was Bechtel and Parsons, a lot of the same companies that are building things around the world, like the Riyadh Metro, and also was overseen by the Mass Highway Department. The Big Dig was the most expensive highway project in the United States, of course, plagued by cost overruns, delays, leaks, design flaws, accusations of poor execution, substandard materials, criminal charges, arrests, and the death of one motorist. The project was originally a 1998 scheduled completion date at a cost of $2.8 billion. Of course, they completely blew that out of the water. But now that it's done, and now that everybody's done bickering about the cost and the due date, it's an amazing piece of infrastructure that changes traffic, makes lives better, changes real estate and pricing around the city. The most expensive infrastructure project ever in California, with the world's, I think, 8th largest GDP as a state alone, was the Eastern Span replacement of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. So we're not even talking about the Bay Bridge. We're talking about a span of the Bay Bridge, which was a project to replace a seismically unsound portion of the Bay Bridge with new self-anchored suspension bridge technology and a pair of viaducts. This is the best. I was reading about this last night because I remember this project as like one of those, oh my gosh, this thing is still going and it still costs so much money. The span replacement took place between 2002 and 2013 with a final price tag of $6.5 billion. That is a 2,500% increase from the original estimate of $250 million. And it was originally scheduled to open in 2007. 5 years later, September 2nd, 2013, it opened. It's now the widest bridge in the world. Cool, but that's just one bridge in one city, and it's just part of the bridge, and that's just the way these things go. The examples that I've given you are mostly tunnels and bridges, both of which are incorporated into the Riyadh Metro, of course, but let's talk about primarily rail projects. And we have to put aside here California's high-speed rail project, which is completely out of control, unfinished. I believe it's $65 billion. I don't even know where that stands, but I think they're going back to the environmental phase. I have no idea. Of course, delay is a thing, and I'm trying to address the Riyadh Metro criticism here. It's relative. Few remember or care that the Singapore Mass Rapid Transit System took 2 decades to complete and is still growing, and that had a capital expenditure of $150 billion. In DC, where I'm from and nearby to where I live, just the addition of a metro line to Dulles Airport, which isn't for all of DC's metro, it's just an added line connecting from stops in Northern Virginia, where I'm actually from, to the airport, cost $6.8 billion. It was originally conceived 60 years ago. That's $200 million per mile on a 30-mile rail line, and it took forever to complete. There were financing delays. There was a big fight between the federal government and the state government. They had issues, of course, with micromanagement with local officials saying, where is this metro line and why aren't you doing it cheaper? Probably the worst things to hear if you're a construction manager. My point is this: metro projects are expensive. They're incredibly complicated. You're dealing with neighborhoods. You're dealing with underground construction under houses. You're also transforming neighborhoods into other things as you do this. It's just the level of complexity and the level of sort of cooperation that you need to get it done is actually amazing. So forget whether it's late compared to estimated completion date. None of that matters. In my opinion, the focus now should be on how good the timing is for the metro to be coming online right now. And Riyadh City is ascending. I believe, and I want to go on record for what it's worth, to our 10,000 subscribers, the metro's first day will start a new era in this city. It's not going to feel like that right away. Ultimately, and faster than you may think, though, it will contribute not just to the city's growth, but to the personal growth of citizens and residents. For many, especially in Riyadh, where commuting times and costs are real daily factors, where real estate is soaring in value and supply tries to keep up, and where traffic is like a daily storm that must be navigated around at your own peril, this metro comes at the perfect time for Riyadh. The timing is also fortunate, of course, because Riyadh's about to open its doors to some of the biggest events in the world: World Cup, Expo 2030. Before then, football matches, prize fights, Riyadh season, so much more. Then you have the giga projects that are going to be attractions in themselves. Diriyah, the new Maraba, perhaps soon to be the world's tallest building. I don't know anything that you don't know. All connected eventually by the Riyadh Metro. It's something I think everyone should feel proud of who's living or visiting Riyadh, and I think they should feel proud to ride on it as well.
That was very interesting. And actually, as soon as you started talking, my brain instantly went to the Big Dig. So I'm really glad that was your first example because we talk about it a lot. So yeah, I'm familiar with Boston, but my husband studied there and I used to visit friends that lived there. And so like we talk about it quite a lot as this crazy thing that was happening. And yeah, the city was under construction forever. But now it's great. And I do think you just need to be a little bit patient. I think what's really cool about the Riyadh Metro is the fact that everybody's been watching it happen. And there's more and more people visiting Riyadh. And so there's this like anticipation. And it's exciting to see the trains going on it, even if they're going nowhere and nobody's in them. It's just really, I think there is a level of anticipation that is really heightened. And so to hear the news that it's going to open is really exciting. Now, I really hope it opens in 2024 because it'd be just really frustrating to get that announcement and then not experience it. One of the things that I think also comes to mind right away when you were talking about this is how like the Dubai Metro was criticized for being built and then nobody was using it. And I think people are asking that question a lot in Riyadh. They're like, is anybody even going to use it? People are still going to want their cars and they're very much passionate about driving and about their cars. And I do think that because of the traffic patterns in Riyadh, people are going to use it, depending obviously on where you live and work. But I think that if you need to cross the city, you will use the metro. I really, truly believe that there is a need for it and it's not just a luxury. So I don't know. And in Dubai as well, like in the beginning, maybe not as many people used it as people expected. And there were criticisms of who's going to use it as well. But I think eventually it became a very convenient way to travel within the city. Now, I don't go to Dubai very often, and so I don't really know. And I've been on the metro, but I don't really remember who was on it when I went on. But I do think that it's going to be something that's utilized in Riyadh because of how busy it gets and how much time it takes. So people will save a lot of time using the metro, I believe. I hope. But I've been watching the construction for the past decade, and it's exciting that it's coming to an end. So very cool.
Yeah, I'll go a step further than that. The first people that use the metro, and I just heard from somebody who rode on one of the test runs, and he said that it was actually incredibly awesome. He's an infrastructure guy, and he has been on a lot of these trains and a lot of these projects as they have come to completion. And he said that not only was it awesome, it was really smooth. Like one thing that he noticed about it was that it was a tremendously smooth riding process. It is not that way in the metro in DC. Of course, anybody taking the subway in New York knows the same thing. It can be bouncy and sort of jerky. That is not going to be what the Riyadh Metro is going to be. The train also, I will say, has got to have some unbelievably awesome views of the city. And my friend who recently wrote it said there's a part of it where it's elevated above ground and then it goes underground. And as it goes underground, that view of the city is one of the best that he's ever seen. And there's going to be things like that attract people to start using the metro. But I think the one thing, and again, I'm going to go a little bit further than what you said, I think the one thing that's going to attract people to the metro is they're going to go on it. And at first, it's not going to be completely crowded. And they're going to have the unbelievable riding experience. And they're going to say, wait, I could be sitting here in this chair, not driving, not in traffic, listening to the 2030 podcast latest episode in peace, looking out at some of these really cool views of the city, and I'm at work in 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Man, that was easy. I don't have my car. I don't have to park it. I don't have to sit in traffic. I don't have to worry about when I'm leaving or coming because the train's just going to be pretty much always going. I don't know about overnight, midnight service. But for work hours, certainly it's going to make a huge impact. And then I think people are going to start thinking about real estate and how they're going to want to maybe live near the metro, because the metro stops not only provide you a way to get where you need to go and have your friends come to you if needed, but they also serve as like plant fuel in the ground. When you put it into a neighborhood, the area around it often grows because it's an economic tailwind to that area. And so I feel like that also may shift where people want to live. And certainly it's going to make working areas accessible to people. If you live way up in the north and you have a job opportunity in the south, you're probably like, I don't know, this is a heck of a commute, an hour each way, depending on traffic. This may change the game for you. And if the riding experience is as good as what I have heard, I think that can make a huge difference. I do want to say one thing too, also about traffic in Riyadh. It's bad. There's just no way to sugarcoat it. It's bad. Everybody knows it's bad. And I don't think that day one of the metro opening is going to mean traffic is going to vanish. In DC, there's traffic every single day at rush hour. But I do think as people adopt the metro over time as their primary means of transportation, and as they adapt to the advantages of the metro services, traffic will definitely improve. It won't be as severe. It won't be as long. It'll be something that you can navigate around if you must. And as I mentioned earlier, I really think for these major events coming up, a lot of the people coming into town are going to want to take the metro to the various stadiums and around the town. And I think it's going to be a nice showpiece for the capital city of Saudi Arabia to say, hey, look, we're a world-class city. Look at this unbelievable metro. Look at how we have developments in every direction. This is something we want to show off. And so that's why I mentioned earlier, the timing of this thing is really good. I know it's over schedule and past the due date or whatever you want to say, but it's here now and the city needs it. I feel like they're going to embrace it.
So it's incredible thinking about just the transformation of transport in the kingdom. Thinking about how a few years ago, women couldn't drive and it was really hard to get places because there were no ride-sharing apps. There was an Uber and Careem back in the day when I was like working early days, early career. It was really hard to shuffle and juggle and figure out who was going to take which car when, who was going to drive. Sharing those resources within the family was a negotiation that was not fun. Convincing somebody to take you somewhere if they were like just coming home after work or whatever. All of these negotiations are really different now. And having something like mass public transport is a game changer for people who still do struggle with transportation, right? So it's just crazy to me how mobility was so restricted for so long. And now not only are women driving, but you do have all these ride-sharing apps and you have more public transportation that's coming to light and opening and creating just opportunities for people to move around. It makes me really excited and really, really happy that that's happening. And I use public transportation almost every city that I go to, and I love it. I think it's the best way to travel. It's usually the fastest. Even if it's horrible, it's still the better way to travel if you can. And I think that for a really long time, I didn't use it just because there wasn't that culture in Saudi. And so like I slowly, and there isn't that culture here in Seattle either, really. There's a lot of buses. I took them when I was in university sometimes, but I like to drive. But now there's a light rail. So there is more kind of public transportation available in Seattle. And I love that it's becoming more available in Saudi. I use it in London all the time. Not everybody I know does. A lot of people find it scary, think it is scary, think that it's noisy, think it's confusing. It just takes a little bit of effort and just a little bit of studying a map, figuring it out. Once you've been on a couple of subways or tubes or metros or whatever you want to call them, just different transportation systems, public transport systems, they're all somewhat similar and you can really get an idea of how to use them and navigate them. So I want to say there is a fear. I talk to a lot of my friends that come and visit from Saudi to London and they're like, no, I'm afraid I'll get lost on the tube. I'm like, Yeah, you might, but then you'll figure it out and then it'll become easier. So get over the fear, take a deep dive, try it out. It might not be so bad. But the tube in London is gross, actually, and noisy as well. So like it really, they need to upgrade these trains. I travel on a couple of the lines quite often. The Victoria line at some points is so deafening because the screeching noise of the wheels on the tracks is just horrible. Plus, it's probably one of the most polluted lines on the underground system. Fun fact, it is the oldest underground in the world, in the United Kingdom. Obviously not the Victoria line, that came later, but the system itself is the oldest one, was the first underground system to open. It's, it needs some upgrading. So think about the luxury that you will experience on these brand new trains in a brand new network, even in an existing city, which is incredible. So yeah, it's going to be great.
It's amazing. I remember when we were going to record and have a meeting in London. This was for episode like 5 or 6 when we were first getting started. I was on my way to London anyway. And when I arrived in London, I sent you a message and I said, "Where is my car service? What kind of welcoming is this? You're Saudi." And you just basically said, "No, take the train from the airport to wherever you're going, and it's like amazing." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but I like the pickup car service, the VIP treatment." And I got on that train and it was so awesome. It was like 15 minutes and I was just right in the heart of London, and I couldn't believe how easy it was. It just speaks to what you were talking about. It's the kind of thing where you're like, I don't know, it seems complicated. Where do I go? What do I do? How do I buy a ticket? And then once you get used to it, you're like, how did I live without this? I have friends that live in New York. At this point, they're pretty advanced in their career in finance and in the legal, some of the white shoe law firms in New York City. They're making a ton of money and they only take the subway to work. And I asked them about that, like, why don't you can afford an Uber if you want. And they're like, it would just take way too long. Like, time is money. We need to get from where we need to be to where we need to be. There's nowhere in the world that is easier to get around if you really know it than New York City, they contend. But they're essentially saying, this is going to be the fastest way for us to do it. That's the only thing we care about. And they're riding the subway with everybody else. It's a great equalizer for cities because it just is the same for everybody. So very excited. Mabruk to everybody living in Riyadh and visiting Riyadh or going to visit Riyadh. Mabruk to authorities, to Bechtel, to the BAX Consortium, Alstom, all the companies that worked on this that had to collaborate to an incredible extent to get it done.
What's really cool is like a lot of the cities that I do visit that have a metro system or a really good public transport system did that in anticipation of something like the Olympics or another big sporting event or another global event like Expo or whatever. So you're just spot on by saying, that this is the right time for Riyadh to have this. Like all of these events are in line. And if we didn't have the previous 10 years where we were working on the metro already done, it would be a really big feat to try and establish that within the next couple of years in anticipation of these exciting global events that are happening in Riyadh. So definitely was worth the wait, and it is the right time for it to be opening. So it is a really important thing to have in a city when you're hosting these types of events. And I'm really glad that Riyadh is set to have it open. So it's great.
Yep. Mabruk, congratulations to everybody. Dr. Hanaa, let's get to the news.
Let's get to the news.
A coalition of Saudi private investors and family offices has formed a new fund, Wa'ad Investment, a new firm focused on supporting growth stage startups with a target fund of 750 million riyals, that is 200 million greenbacks. The initiative is led by Yasser Al-Ghamdi, Wa'ad's investment founder and chief investment operations officer, alongside key partners from the Al-Majid and Al-Misfer family offices. How did I do on those names, Dr. Hanaa?
Bad. No, good job. Al-Majid and Al-Misfer. You got it.
Thank you. Oh, I'm a natural.
You're right. Exactly. So Nasser Al-Majid, CEO of Al-Majdiya Group, and Fahad Al-Misfar, CEO of Saudi real estate infrastructure company Binaya, are reportedly integral to the venture's strategic direction and investment goals. The initiative is spearheaded by Yasser Al-Ghamdi, Wa'ad Investments founder and chief investment operations officer, in partnership with the Al-Majid Al-Misfar family offices. It's
Do you
redundant.
need help on the pronunciations? I'm really happy to help you if you need
Thank
any
you.
guidance.
I really
You
appreciate
got
that.
it?
Sometimes I can't. You know what it is? It's the transliteration. So I'm like, what is this, Wa'ad or Wa'ad? Is this Al-Misfar? You're never, like when you write it down in English, it's transliterated. And so you might be missing out which Arabic letter it actually is. So sometimes, like when I was reading this, because I didn't actually look it up, Al-Majdiya Group, I'm not sure if that's what it's called. So my instinct was like, I want to Google this. That's why I paused. I want to Google it to see what it's called in Arabic. But anyway, thanks.
The reason why I'm excited we're talking about this is because this is like when you're looking at the maturity of a venture capital ecosystem, you really need to have funds that are positioned at all stages of investment. And they only occur when there are companies in which to invest. So you had a ton of seed funds come along after SVC and some other first movers were in the space. You had a lot of other funds come along and start to get in on the seed stage of investment. And those things are the highest risk for investors because they're the least mature. But when you structure a fund that is focused on seed, you're getting a lot of access to the startups that are just taking root. And they're usually taking root as part of a very nascent ecosystem where if you build from that stage up, you can have these startups go in and network with other seed stage ventures. But at some point, you need to have follow-on investments. You need to have more mature investors. And then it goes all the way up basically to private equity, which would either come in post-IPO, pre-IPO, but the stage of the company would be quite advanced. So it's really cool to see a new fund that is focused on a little bit of a later stage from Saudis who are based in Saudi and part of different family offices. There are now a lot of VCs in Saudi Arabia. It's starting to become a place where, for example, Ibrahim Almojel was talking about where you're seeing these companies mature over time. And so there needs to be support for those companies. And the best way to do it is not with the public sector, because it's very difficult for public sector people that are not spending private capital to make smart investments. They still do. Obviously, you have the PIF and you have other investment firms and institutional investors that are stepping in and seeing really good opportunities. But what we're seeing now is this next stage. And it's you look ahead to it and say, okay, where are the sort of later stage investors? Where are some of the guys that want to do M&A? And this is something that we're starting to see now. It's very early still, as Ibrahim Almojel told you, as I'm telling you now, for the Saudi VC ecosystem, this stuff takes so long and sometimes doesn't work out. But every single step along the way for Saudi Arabia's VC ecosystem has been the right step and the correct sort of ascendance for a sector that is very important to authorities to develop. And it should be, because this ends up being the engine of capitalism, venture capital, startups, because then these technologies not only can do well and create prosperity locally, you can export them and start seeing FDI, inward flows of investment and capital. I just think that this is really cool. I wanted to draw attention to this. I didn't know any of these people. I don't know any of these people, but you have a fund here that's, hey, we're going to take a little bit of an advanced positioning into this space. And we're seeing some companies that we like. They also are not a closed fund. They're raising money, but I bet they get it. So just cool. Congrats to them.
Yeah, congrats to them. And also, it's really important just to note these are two family companies, right? They're family owned. And I think that's the majority of companies within the kingdom in the private sector. And so it's great to see that the role of family owned companies in basically continuing to fill this gap of funding and the needs of new small and medium enterprises, new companies. It's great to see that they're looking at these as opportunities, right? So these aren't going to be new family-owned companies. They're going to be a different format that's going to come onto the scene, which I think is important for economic growth. So it's great.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Iyad at Flat Six Labs, who is dealing with a lot of seed investments. He's running that fund there. He does an amazing job, as does Sanabel, SVC. All of these guys are working really hard to not just make money, which is the primary goal of venture capital, but to really build out a community around what they're doing. That's the only way to do it. And they're doing it. It's a very selfless act as well from them because they want to see not just their investments do well, they want to see their portfolio companies do well, and they want to see new opportunities coming in. The only way you can do that is by having a really fertile ground for that type of stuff. So it's just good to see. It's nice to have this little bit of an update.
All right, so a special economic zone is being rolled out in Riyadh. It's reportedly set to turn Saudi Arabia into a cloud computing hub that will boost jobs and attract foreign investment. And the Cloud Computing Special Economic Zone was launched in April of 2023. It's located in the Innovation Tower at King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, CAXT, in Riyadh.
CAST. Yeah, CAST is cool. The zone is set to account for 30% of total information communications technology spend in the kingdom by 2030. That's a lot, and offers investors the opportunity to take advantage of a growing market for emerging and disruptive digital technologies. It is backed by the kingdom's, I've never heard of this, cloud first policy. The CCSEZ will gradually be expanded to cover the technologies that will shape the future, with an initial focus on cloud computing. A vital hope for innovation and collaboration is being created to drive the next wave of tech advancement. What is cool about this, we're already tech heavy in this news segment, but I think what's awesome about this is another one of those little clusters, and it has a focus. So it's not just a tech startup cluster, it's a focus on cloud computing, and that's a huge sector for the world in the next decade, and it may be even bigger than we think now. So it's good to see Saudi Arabia a little bit ahead on this and to be investing in things like that, in things like this, CAST is an amazing place. The team there is amazing, and they now have, where this is located, the Innovation Towers is now kind of part of Riyadh's skyscraper landmark. It's a huge, like, kind of cube building, but it's massive, and that's located at the CAST campus, which is one of the drivers of deep tech. So it's cool. This is like in Riyadh, and yeah, this will be interesting to see what kind of impact this has. Saudi Arabia-based perfume maker Almojel for Oud company received more orders for its IPO than shares available in just a few hours after books opened on the deal this past Sunday. The company is selling a 30% stake, 7.5 million shares, and seeks to raise as much as $188 million. Institutional investors fully covered the order book throughout the 90 riyals to 94 riyals, $24 to $25 price range, according to people familiar with the matter, of course, who asked not to be identified at this stage because the information is quite private. But that's interesting.
So the offer period and book building and institutional investors will run until August 29th, while retail investors will be able to submit offers on September 15th. Almojel for Oud hired BSF Capital, the investment banking arm of the Bank Saudi Al-Faransi, for the offering. Do you like Oud, Lucien?
Yes, I do. I don't know if I've told you this story, but maybe 10 years ago, I was at an event in the Saudi Embassy in Washington, D.C., and a gentleman who I'd never met, and actually who I didn't even talk to at all, he just walked up to me, a younger guy, and he just handed me a bottle of Oud perfume or cologne. And I was like, oh, thanks. Like, cool. And I tried to talk to him, and he was just like, I don't know if he spoke a lot of English, but he was just like smiley and super happy. I obviously look like the whitest person of all time. And he was just like, here you go. Here's some traditional Saudi Oud. And I was like, all right, cool. And I put it in my suit pocket because I never forgot that it looked like it was a huge, kind of a round thing. So it almost broke my suit pocket, which was getting tighter and tighter at those days. And when I got home, I put some on. I was like, oh my God, this smells amazing. Like, actually really good. And it became my, like, whenever I wear cologne, which is not often, so the bottle lasted me like 8 years. It like became a thing that I would wear for special events, and if I didn't smell good. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I'm pretty sure it might have been more of a female smell. I'm really bad with that stuff. I don't know anything about it. And then, yeah, it ran out, and I was actually really disappointed, and I still haven't found a chance to go to Almojel Al-Oud or Almojel for Oud or some of these other stores that are like it that seem to be ultra high end. And I want to go in there and be like, can you get me basically this smell? I don't know. Is that the perfume you wear? What
do I wear Oud? So when I was growing up, I didn't really like it. Dihin Oud, so that's the essential oil that you get from the root, right, of the actual incense itself. I didn't like it. I thought it was too strong. Now I love it, but there is so many different variations of it. But it's definitely, I do love it. The oud that you get today is very much different from real original kind of like the essential oil itself. Like when you go, so many perfumes today have oud smell or they'll mix it in or whatever, right? But back in the day, it was a very niche. I love it. Really like the incense itself. Like I love burning a piece of oud.
Yeah.
It makes the house smell so clean and so fresh to me. A lot of people hate it, but for me, it's like one of my favorite things. If I ever walk into a house and they just burn some incense, I'm just like, oh, it smells so amazing. So I love that. And I do love Dihin Oud, but it can be really overpowering. I had an aunt, she died several years ago, Hamha. Her name was Mama Johara, and Mama Johara used to come to Seattle every summer. And she was famous in the neighborhood because they'd always have like neighborhood parties and barbecues and invite everybody. She was famous because of how hospitable she was, but everybody always commented on how amazing she smelled. But you'd come and you'd say hello to Mama Johara, and there's all these Americans, right, coming to visit Mama Johara, and they'd kiss her and they'd smell like her forever, basically, because she had so much Dihin Oud on. But basically, when I think of it, sometimes I think of her, I think of my grandma. So it really does bring back really nice memories as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because it is a very distinctive smell, and it's I think a wonderful smell. It is not something that is at all common in the United States. In fact, I basically never smell it anywhere here unless I'm at the Royal Embassy of Saudi Arabia in Washington, and that's what attracted me to it because I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to smells. And in fact, the reason why I haven't gone to buy a replacement for it because I'm worried that I might not get it right or if I don't smell it. And I don't want to go in there and act like this is what I want. Let me smell 15 different things because I'm just going to get more confused. And then the salesperson's going to be like, you have no idea what you're doing. I think it's cool.
Khadijis are, right? That's what we're known for. And people are really good about their cologne and their perfume and they know it really well. You could take your old bottle in to a shop and they would probably be able to match it for you. And by the way, it's not necessarily feminine or masculine. Dihin Oud is, anybody can wear it. So there are some that are like mixed that can be more feminine, but the actual oil itself usually is pretty much gender agnostic.
It is what it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I will embrace that. Very cool. Yeah, congrats to them. I will try next time I go, and we will maybe update this conversation if I do end up going into one. Maybe I'll take the Metro. I don't know, but cool.
So moving on, according to a post on Sports Illustrated's Colorado Buffaloes blog, head coach Deion Sanders' former special teams coordinator Trevor Riley made the headline-grabbing claim that he spent time in the Middle East lobbying Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, the nation's sovereign wealth fund, to invest in the school's NIL program on behalf of the football team. Riley outlined his efforts to grow the Buffs' 5-4-3-0 collective, as well as aired his frustrations on the August 1st resignation letter to Sanders and CU Athletic Director Rick George that was reviewed by the Sports Illustrated blog. In the letter, Riley told George and Sanders, I even went to Saudi Arabia and got a meeting with the Saudis who were interested in pursuing business. I have email receipts to prove it, and you guys let it fall flat on its face.
This story, so we sent it back and forth to each other on WhatsApp because it is amazing. And the reason why we're talking about it, it's obviously very stupid.
Not news.
But it's not news. It's really nothing. But it really just perfectly is a captured sample of Americans' misunderstanding of Saudi Arabia, perhaps as non-savvy investors. And maybe he was offering a solid investment and his story is true. We actually don't know. But this is getting headlines all over the country because anything college football or pro football, we're talking about pigskin here, especially at this time of year, is going to generate some headlines. Deion Sanders is the most famous coach in college football now that Nick Saban has retired. He has completely re-energized the Buffaloes of Colorado. I think it's the Buffaloes of Colorado. And he's a famous wide receiver, of course. Prime time, played for the Cowboys, one of the greats. He's a sports commentator. He had a short stint with the Washington Redskins, which didn't work out, so I don't really like him that much. But what he's done with that program is amazing. But I just wanted to read, I have to read this full quote, Dr. Hanaa, because it's truly amazing. The arrangement was that because I did all the NIL work at Jackson and got us through, you guys would pay me a modest salary and make me the special teams coordinator, which would have freed up time for me to handle NIL activities. You paid me $90,000 a year and let me handle special teams. I burned through all my contacts in my Mormon community, which is worth about $3 trillion. Now I can't get these people to answer my calls because I just found out today that none of my endeavors will happen. I even went to Saudi Arabia, met with the Saudis. I have emails to prove it. Yeah, that's just so amazing because this whole thing is about this guy who's trying to raise money for NIL. NIL is new in the college community. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but before NIL, it was illegal, not illegal, but you would be kicked out of your school and your athletic program if you took a single dollar of money from anyone that wasn't the college program for which you played, even for things like selling your jersey that you wore in a game or signing an autograph. If you sold that to somebody, you would not only be suspended and banned, but you also, the future of your career was often derailed. The Heisman Trophy was taken away from Reggie Bush for something very similar, and that's just so ridiculous. So the NIL program is called the Name, Image, and Likeness Program, and it's a new program essentially to allow college athletes to rightfully profit from their name, image, and likeness. Now athletes can monetize their personal brand and do endorsements, sponsorships, appear in commercials, social media posts, and other opportunities. It's really good because these college players are basically only paid in a scholarship to their university, and that's it. And they get some free benefits like housing and some meals. But a lot of these kids come from poor families, so they don't have a lot of money to pay for anything else. And there's no way for them to work if they are training to be a professional football player, for example. The NIL program has made some of these college players very rich so far. In the top three, LeBron James's son, Bronny James at USC basketball, Shadur Sanders, the quarterback at Colorado, who is Deion Primetime's son, and my favorite on this very short list, Miss Livy Dunn from LSU Gymnastics, who makes most of her money off of Instagram because she is enormously easy to look at. And this is just a way for sort of college players to make money. This story, though, it's truly amazing. This whole kerfuffle, this hubbub about going to Saudi Arabia, talking to the PIF, trying to get them to invest in an NIL program. I don't know how you make that profitable, but I'm sure there's ways. PE is now getting into it a little bit. We were way off the Saudi topic, but it's just, this is the kind of stuff in America that if they see one thing about Saudi Arabia this month, it's something like this. And that's why we're doing this podcast, not to reinforce these stories, but I think it adds context and color when we talk about this stuff.
Anyway, it's interesting. I don't know anything about sports. I know what I hear from like my kids, and we talk a lot about sports on this show. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Not my area of expertise. We do talk a lot of sports.
Yep. Yeah. At the same time, you are a Man City fan, right?
No, oh my God, absolutely not.
Where do I have that? How do I have
fan.
That? Arsenal, that's right. The first of the losers. Yeah, but so you follow some soccer. We've had some good
only
guests on.
I am surrounded by it in my house, but yeah, and only one of my like family members cares. But
what about your alma mater's football team? Do you like stay in touch with that at all? They're pretty good.
The Huskies.
The Huskies, yeah.
They have pretty colors. I like purple and gold.
Yeah, we talked in previous segments about how big sports are in the United States and how big of a business they are. Football, NFL football in particular, just absolutely dominates. And so I'm super into it. I'm super into college football as well. I follow, obviously, my alma mater, Virginia. The Cavaliers are never good, but I follow it all. I will never let my children play football. It is a very dangerous sport, and I'm going to have to reconcile that with me watching a lot of football around them. But yeah, anyway, I'm sorry to take you off your point, but
okay,
yeah.
So
this is just
that I'm not supposed to like the Ducks. Like, I know that. I just don't know anything else. The Ducks.
You should know that.
Right? All I know.
I like the Ducks, right?
What?
Because they got the Nike deal, because Nike was founded in Oregon. They have the coolest uniforms you've ever seen. They're always a football team that is just, we don't want to play any defense. We're going to score 80 points. And if you can get more than us, then that's our playbook. Does anybody really give crap about this at all. We were way off topic. But anyway, we debated whether to include this unbelievably stupid story. And we thought, actually, we can add a little bit of context to this in case anybody's interested. And we also felt like, as popular as this story is in the United States, nobody in Saudi Arabia probably heard about it. So anyway, there's a bit of a scandal going on at the Colorado Buffalo team with primetime. That's it. That's the story.
Thank you, Lucien.
Dr. Hanaa, thank you very much.